In the heart of a forgotten neighborhood, a young man named Chuck Harris stood on the brink of a life-altering decision. Orphaned and burdened with an ancient house that whispered tales of his ancestors, he contemplated selling it to escape the painful memories it held. Yet, just as he was about to turn the key in the lock of a new beginning, fate intervened. What secrets lay hidden within the crumbling walls? Could the discovery of a mysterious door beneath the floorboards lead him to answers he never expected? As Chuck ventured into the unknown, he found more than just dust and cobwebs. He unearthed a legacy that could reshape his future. Would he cling to the shadows of the past or embrace the unexpected treasures that awaited him? In a house filled with history, what would Chuck discover about himself along the way? As he prepared to delve deeper, one thing became clear. Sometimes, the most profound transformations begin with the courage to confront what we've long hidden away. Chuck became an orphan and was left only with an old house. Right before he decided to sell it, he found a hidden room that changed everything. Chuck Harris and his parents lived in the oldest house in his neighborhood. The house was spacious but precarious. Chuck's dad never wanted to sell or build a new one because it's part of our family, as he said. Several generations of his family lived there, so the same way he was born and raised in the old mansion, he wanted Chuck and his grandkids to live there too. If the neighbors demolished their houses and built new ones, it was because, after so many repairs and restorations, it would become easier and maybe even cheaper to simply build a new house. But Chuck's father didn't think like that. The man was stubborn and attached to the place. When Chuck was 12 years old and had enough of bullies because of the old house, he turned to his father and said, "Dad, why don't we move to a new house? I mean, you spend so much time and money trying to fix this house, but doesn't it make more sense to just move to a new place?" The boy continued, "Besides, the other kids would stop mocking me." "Listen, Chuck," replied the man, "don't listen to what other people have to say. They have their lives and we have ours. We all have problems and this house means so much to our family. If someone disrespects you, tell them to mind their business. Also, when you grow up, I'd like you to keep this house and continue to pass it on to your kids, all right?" Chuck nodded his head in agreement. He knew his father was a stubborn old man, but he had a good heart. So Chuck kept his promise. When he turned 22, his father died in a car accident. His mother could only hold the pain for so long. Few months after his father passed away, his mother developed heart disease, something that would kill her 6 months later. Chuck was devastated. He didn't have anyone else. He grieved for a few months, and at times he considered selling the house. But that was actually the last thing he wanted to do so. Instead, he decided to focus on his work and didn't think about anything else. He worked as a carpenter at the time, so the work helped distract him and allowed him to move on. Chuck functioned well for a few years like that. He was so focused at work that he didn't even notice how screwed up his house was. But at some point, he couldn't ignore it anymore. Things got worse when the neighbor's children would mock him or a girl he was dating ghosted him after seeing his house. "All right, that's enough," he thought. "I am sorry, Dad, but I'm done with this piece of crap. I've got to sell this house." But Chuck quickly changed his mind when he made an inquiry around the house and noticed how much money he needed to spend with repairs before trying to attempt to sell it. "I don't have money to demolish and build a new house, and I can't afford to sell it," shared Chuck with his best friend. "It seems to me there's only one solution, dude. You'll need to slowly repair the house until you get into a livable and sellable point." Chuck looked at him and said, "You're right. I've got to do something and stop complaining." So Chuck began renovating his home. One day, one of the beams fell to the ground floor, so Chuck had to change the floor in that room. When he tore down the old boards, he accidentally saw a wooden door under them. "Oh no, there must be a mice family living here all of these years," said the man to himself. Chuck was surprised because he'd never seen it before. He knew every part, every corner of this house. "But actually I don't," he told himself. "Okay, let's see what's inside," he said while opening the door. He saw a ladder leading to a small basement room. It looked as if they'd been there for 100 years. Chuck saw several tables with drawers and lots of rags. He took one of them and a ring fell out of it. He picked it up and was surprised. It was a big gold ring. "Well, let's check what else the Harrises have left here for me." He searched the entire room and found many more pieces of jewelry. It seems that Grandpa working as a goldsmith wasn't a legend after all. The young man found not only valuable pieces of jewelry but several jewelry tools of the time as well. Chuck sold everything he found to a local collector who had his own museum. He got really good money from the proceeds, And even though he was tempted to restore the house and sell it, he decided to do a large-scale restoration and keep it. It looked very cool, although it did not spoil its vintage. "Man, this house looks amazing. I feel like I'm in a museum," said his best friend when he came for a visit. "This is it. I've got an idea." Chuck's idea was to open his house as a real museum. The news spread fast, and he quickly got many visitors. Excursionists from outside town would often come to his house. People would take photographs against the backdrop of one of the city's oldest buildings, and Chuck would watch them from his window. "I know I did the right thing," he thought to himself. And as fate would have it, during one of the tours, he met a girl named Jenny, who came from a nearby town. After a while they began dating, and soon they were living together in Chuck's family home. As Chuck descended into the hidden room, his heart raced with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Dust motes danced in the faint light filtering through cracks in the wooden beams above. The musty air was thick with the weight of history, and he felt as if he were stepping into a forgotten chapter of his family's legacy. He carefully moved aside the old rags and furniture, revealing an array of tools and jewelry pieces that spoke of craftsmanship and artistry long lost to time. The golden ring glinted in his hand, a tangible connection to his grandfather, a goldsmith whose skills had been the pride of their family. With every item he uncovered, Chuck felt a surge of purpose. These were not just relics, they were fragments of a story waiting to be retold. Days turned into weeks as Chuck meticulously cataloged and restored the treasures he had found. Each piece carried memories and whispers of love, struggle, and resilience. Inspired, he decided to transform the old mansion into a museum that would honor his family's heritage and share it with the world. This place, once a source of shame, was becoming a beacon of pride. Word spread about the museum, and soon visitors flocked to the house, eager to glimpse the life of the Harrises. Chuck thrived on their enthusiasm. With every tour, he shared stories of his ancestors, and in doing so, he reclaimed the narrative of his family's past. He met people from all walks of life, each bringing their own stories and experiences. The museum became a sanctuary, a place where history breathed and lives intersected. Amidst this newfound vibrancy, Chuck's life took another unexpected turn. One day, during a guided tour, he spotted Jenny, a curious and bright-eyed woman who was captivated by the artifacts and stories. She approached him with genuine interest, asking questions that reflected her own passion for history. They struck up a conversation that flowed effortlessly, and before long, their connection blossomed into something deeper. As their relationship grew, so did Chuck's sense of belonging. Jenny appreciated the house's character and history, understanding its significance to Chuck in a way that few others could. Together, they spent evenings repairing old furniture, sharing laughs over coffee in the kitchen, and dreaming about the future. With Jenny by his side, the once dreary mansion began to feel like home in a way Chuck had never imagined. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Jenny turned to Chuck with a thoughtful expression. "You know, this place is more than just a museum now. It feels alive, like it's filled with the stories of everyone who has walked through it," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Have you ever thought about what it could mean to live here, not just as a guardian of the past, but as someone who builds a future here?" Chuck pondered her words, realizing she was right. The house had transformed from a burden into a canvas for their lives together. With the museum thriving and their bond growing stronger, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had reclaimed his family's legacy and turned it into something beautiful. In the months that followed, Chuck and Jenny organized community events at the museum, bringing families together to celebrate the history of the neighborhood. They hosted workshops on craftsmanship, storytelling nights, and art exhibits featuring local artists. The once empty rooms of the house now echoed with laughter and joy, weaving a new narrative for the old walls. As winter approached, Chuck proposed to Jenny in the very room where he had discovered the hidden treasures. The warmth of their love illuminated the space, and he could see the history of their family merging with the promise of their future. "Will you share this life with me?" he asked, kneeling before her with the gold ring he had found. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she nodded, knowing that together they could create a new legacy. Their wedding was held in the garden, surrounded by friends, family, and the community that had embraced them. The house stood proudly in the background, a testament to resilience and renewal. Chuck had turned a place once filled with grief into a home filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. As they danced under the stars, Chuck reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The old house, once a symbol of loss, had transformed into a foundation for hope and connection. He had learned that embracing the past could lead to a future even brighter than he had imagined. With Jenny by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next, knowing that together they could weave their own story into the fabric of the Harris legacy.